Welcome to Ad Spend Secrets. My name's Luke Smith. In today's episode, we're talking to Jordan Lomax. Jordan is the founder of The Social Lab, which is a powerhouse design-first agency that specializes in all things digital marketing, but most importantly, strategic and creative angles that can get your brand known, can get your brand seen. Jordan's been in the industry for 10 plus years. She's worked with some of the biggest brands out there. She also teaches and coaches digital marketing in all its various forms to companies, corporate teams, and universities. Jordan and I go way back. We're actually working at an agency together in 2015, so we've known each other quite a long time. And I wanted to get Jordan on the podcast today to talk about all things creative so that we can figure out what's working today, what formats we should be developing for our brands, and what's going to give us the best bang for our buck. So let's jump into the episode. Jordan Lomax, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I wanted to get you on, Jordan, because you are a creative mastermind and you're a bit of a unicorn in that you do media buying and creative, and you've got a very unique perspective on ads, organic, and all things marketing. So yeah, it'd be great to dig in and get your thoughts on what's working right now and what we should be doing from a creative perspective.
Nice. Well, thanks for having me.
Let's start super simple right at the top. Well, creative's a pretty broad term, right? So like, what are we talking about when somebody says I need creative?
Generally when they say that, they're coming to me or coming to anyone, I should say, for ads, for like social ads, banner ads, video ads for YouTube, basically like the visual element of what the ad is going to be is what that normally covers.
Does it include sort of video and images as well? Are they kind of the two main ones that clients would come to you for?
Yeah, I feel like these days more and more video. I feel like no one really wants stills anymore. But yeah, generally a mix of stills, video, and then also depending who it is, like the caption or the copy headlines that are going to go with it as well.
Yeah. So I know from an ad perspective, our focus is mostly on creative these days, more so than audience, I suppose. Like it used to be heavy onto audience and now it's heavy on creative. Are you kind of seeing the same, and what's your thoughts on how important, creative might be in ads these days?
Yeah, I feel like I was actually having this conversation the other day with someone, because like a couple of years ago when you put your ad plan together, you'd have like 84 different ad sets and like a 2% lookalike and a 4% lookalike and a this and a that. And now it's like, oh, we just have one campaign and everything's in that one campaign. So yeah, I mean, from my end, definitely the same. But I think it's also because we don't have any data. Well, we do have data. We have way less data than we used to be able to target with. So now it's like, all right, we've got to kind of put it out to a wider audience and hope that the creative makes sure that the right person reacts in the right way.
Yeah, and does that mean that we need more creative than before? I mean, in terms of volume, are you doubling down on the amount that you're producing?
Yeah, not necessarily saying like you have to have way more creative or anything like that, but I do definitely think because you don't know what's going to land and kind of exactly who's in that target market you've got in front of you. It's just, even if it's slightly different, like maybe giving 5 variations of the copy, or like slightly different, I don't know, one a 15-second and a 30-second, like not completely different, 30 insanely different creatives, but yeah, different variations just to try to understand what sticks.
Got you. And how are you, what's your process? Can you give us some insight into how you would create? Are you using specific platforms that we should know about? Are there something that, might be better for beginners versus advanced, or what's it look like?
Yes. Okay. Process. My process changes all the time, but normally I will say one of the first things I do, if I am going to create, especially because I, good and a bad thing, I don't really have a niche. So I work across like a lot of different types of brands, which is good and bad. But the first thing I normally do, then someone comes and they're like, hey, we need some creative, or we're doing a campaign. I normally go check like Facebook ads library or LinkedIn ads library or just like TikTok creative center, which are all free to access, just to have a look at like what their competitors are doing, what people in the industry is doing, and try to understand kind of what works. If there's people I know are doing really well in this space, I can kind of have a bit of an idea of, okay, well, what do their ads look like? What are they talking about? What's clearly working for them. So that's kind of where I start. Not to say that I'm going to copy them, but good inspiration. So sometimes as well, good like knowledge for, I was doing it for a gym recently and they only wanted to offer a 14-day free trial, but all of their competitors were offering like 28 days, 30 days, 1 month free. And so it kind of identifies the gaps for you as well. Just a side note. But yeah, after that, depending on what tool you want to use. I mean, I'm always pushing people to use CapCut for videos, especially that kind of like TikTok-y style ad. Because it's just super, super easy to use. Heaps of template. Do you use CapCut much?
I was going to ask, is that the TikTok native one? Is that same owners as TikTok?
Yeah. So I mean, they have a like desktop editing platform you can download, so like way easier to edit than doing it on TikTok itself. But yeah, it's super easy to use, and there's heaps of templates. They have like if you jump on there, it's quite fun. They have like an AI ad creation tool where you can like put it in, it writes a script for you, even if you've got no video or anything. I was doing it for a class the other day, and I put in like, I want to sell tickets to my crocodile tour. Here's the details. And it like put together this really cool ad with like crocodiles and water, and it was actually not bad. So yeah, CapCut, or even just like Canva, like any of those tools. I mean, TikTok actually recently just brought out an AI ad creative tool as well. I only saw this yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to use it yet. But yeah, CapCut and Canva is probably the two I use most. And then depending if like I want to create the creative, or sometimes if it's like more user generated content, I've actually found recently like heaps of, they're not really tools, but more like service offerings. So there's one in the US called trends.io, and it's like $2,000 for 40 user generated content pieces, like videos that their creator community create for you. There's one in Australia called UseClip. It's a little bit more expensive. There's like an agency called Ernie that do more like sending out your product to a whole heap of like micro influencers and creators and getting them to create content. So if it's that style, then I don't know if they count as tools, but probably more like services.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I know one of the hardest things is getting UGC. So I think one that we've used is an app called Archive in Shopify, but that's kind of still on you to send the approval request from within Shopify, I think, or anyone that hashtags it, you can kind of ask, can I use this for marketing? But I think what you've suggested is, a better approach in that. Can you script it out for them? Like you give them a bit of a brief and then send the product. Is that?
Yeah, so all of them kind of work a similar way where like you basically put out a brief and you're like, I've got this product, I need, an unboxing video, or I want you to focus on these 3 benefits, or I want you to talk about like why you love XYZ. And then they come back and say like, yep, this is my idea, or this is how I would do it. And then you just go like, yeah, cool, approve. I think the Trend.io and the UseClip one, they operate on like credits. So you buy like a credit pack, and then for everyone you approve, it just uses credit. So it's actually pretty cool.
That is very cool. I'd imagine you'd see a lot of those in the TikTok library. That's a great tip because, my default is Facebook ad library. And using TikTok could even be helpful, I guess, for Facebook to like get inspo for cross-platform stuff. Yeah,
and the TikTok ad library is good as well because like you can actually segment it by industry and by objective and by like country and region and stuff, which you can't you can do to a certain extent with regions on Facebook ads library, but you can't be like, show me the best traffic versus like the best conversion ad. So TikTok's actually quite cool for that.
Oh, that is very helpful. Does it show you? It doesn't show you metrics, does it? I guess that would be too private.
No, it doesn't show you metrics, unfortunately.
Damn.
Yes.
All right. So if you go through any of these routes, I suppose, to produce creative, what's your process in terms of the actual output? Because I know there's so many different placements now. You've got vertical and you've got square, and sometimes you might want a video that could run across both. Do you have any tips on what you would do there, whether it be image or video?
Yeah, generally now, like, always do video first and then kind of use like whatever part of the video to create a still from there. My general rule is basically vertical video above everything. And then take what I can from vertical video to work across other channels. Because even like people are so not fussy these days with creative in terms of like it doesn't have to look perfect. If you take your vertical video and then I'm going to try explain this visual, when you take a vertical video and then you kind of put it behind and blur it to make it as big as the square. I think Facebook automatically do that anyway. If you do a vertical video, it'll extend it out. So like I normally just do that, and that's my kind of like feed placement. But yeah, I think vertical video is the priority where possible.
Got you. That's like the 80-20. Yeah, I think that's great. Most of our ads I see do go to, I think it might be stories as a priority sometimes. Like it used to be feed, and now just a lot goes into those vertical placements.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard though. I mean, it also depends on the audience. Like if I'm targeting maybe like a slightly older demographic and I know that a lot's going to go on Facebook, then I'm probably going to prioritize the feed a little bit more. So I think it probably depends on the audience as well. And then that would dictate what I put the time and energy into.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's probably happening for us because we target kids and parenting brands a lot, and a lot of that is through Instagram, and there's a lot of young mums I think on stories and reels and that kind of thing, so that's where a lot of our ads are feeding out. But that's a good tip. How do we stand out, I suppose, if we're talking about the competitive landscape and everyone's doing vertical video? Is there any tips on how to create the videos, any length suggestions, and how do you hook people?
That's a good question. How do I hook people? Well, the first thing actually, and I only answer this in like a very good way because someone asked me this the other day, and I was saying, Black Friday this year, I'm sure you've seen it, I'm sure everyone's seen it, like every single brand out there has been like, I've got this idea, we're going to write it on a piece of paper and we're going to like hold it up and it's going to be super lo-fi. We're going to be like running down the street with a poster. And I feel like someone did it like 3 months ago and everyone was like, I saw this brand do it. Like I feel like every single creative brainstorm was like exactly the same. So I feel like in terms of standing out, if you've seen people do it, it's too late. Like if you then have seen it already, it means other people have. And if you then go and brief someone in and you do it, like you're behind the 8 ball. So if you see someone doing something unique, that is not a good time to be like, I'm going to do that as well to stand out, because that stood out to me. Just a little tip. But I think like, I feel like you said this. I was actually thinking about this the other day. You told me this maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago. I don't know if you remember, you were doing a Google Ads class for my class, and you were telling them about like the golden rule of 3, or like rules of 3 with ads, and always have a wild card. Do you remember this?
Throw something in the mix.
Make that up in my head. I feel like that's always stuck with me as like a way to stand out, is kind of always just doing something super rogue. Not super rogue, doesn't always have to be super rogue, but super random that you've never tried before, that like no one else is doing. Chuck it in. see how it goes.
And that's when I suppose not looking at competitors can help, because you can just creatively, I mean, if you take yourself away for 20 minutes and think about something left of field and just test it, like you don't know if it's going to work or not. And sometimes that third creative can outperform the 1 and 2 that you had studied and benchmarked and thought would do really well. Yeah,
I think it's important. But even like what I generally try to do is, I mean, like you said, don't look at my competitors, like look at other industries, because like, okay, if I'm trying to think differently and I'm going to go have a look at, I'm a gym and I'm going to look at what all these other gyms are doing, you're never going to stand out because all of that's going to be in my head. So instead I might be like, okay, I'm going to go look at like, I don't know, what like this soft drink brand are doing. Like I'm going to have a look at what an accounting firm is doing. Like I'm going to go have a look at all these different industries and then try to pull ideas from there that aren't already being used in my industry. And the same goes for like different countries and regions. Like a lot of the time I'll look to the US for some kind of like creative ideas that maybe aren't in the Australian market, or like Southeast Asian markets, like just looking at different places that your audience isn't already getting served those ads. I think is a good way to go.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I actually saw a video just the other day of they were talking about product placement on shelves in shopping centers, supermarkets, and it was a muesli bar brand that was kind of new and it didn't have the brand awareness, but like just thinking about things differently. How does their boxing compare to others, and is it clear that it's a muesli bar or not? Because they didn't get the take-up rate purely because they were unknown brand. Their actual brand name didn't include muesli bar. And the actual imagery wasn't front and center. So that change alone, it just had me thinking about display ads and banners in the digital world and our clients. So I think it's just like cross-pollinating all of these different things.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, take what you learn from like a shopping center or like I feel like we must be on similar algorithms for our social feeds, I'm sure. But it's like if you're in a shopping center, like, and you're looking at all the products, and then like what sticks out to you in a shopping center, like, well, your online feed's exactly the same. So what kind of things kind of make something different? Is it color? Is it style? Is it imagery? Like, what is it? Is it the shape of the product? I know we can't change the shape of an ad, but anything like that you can kind of emulate is good. But yeah, I don't know. I think just easier said than done. I don't know if this is like annoying advice, but anything that like disrupts a pattern that people are used to seeing. So like, as example, on LinkedIn the other day, a client of mine is in like the tech cyberspace, and like every single ad in that space is blue and black. And like, if you go to the LinkedIn ads library and you look up cyber companies, everything is like blue, black with like a vague computer background of like wires and lights and like motherboards and things like that. So it was like, okay, the way that we could stand out is actually just disrupting the pattern. Like, instead of using black and blue, like, what if we used, I don't know, red and pink? Like, is that something that's going to break it up? Or that, yeah. Anything that disrupts. I hate that word.
I'm laughing because in the last 3 months, I've spoken to a brand in that space, and it is that color. It's that kind of cyber company, and it's dark blacks and dark blues and the whites. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, blue equals trust. So that's why they use it. But yeah, it's very yeah. And anything like that. That's what, if you can use ads library or anything, and like, I mean, I love printing things out and whatnot, or like putting it in a slide deck and just visually like putting it all as if it is at a shopping center and it's like on a shelf in front of you. It's like, okay, what can I put in that shelf that's going to stand out on the other things? It's a great metaphor.
Yeah. Have you seen that one where it's the old Paint user UX, a screenshot of Paint, and it's like designer needed, just written in that pen. And that was, I think, maybe a billboard or a Facebook ad. Anyway, I see those like reused by a lot of brands. And there's the other one, just the iPhone notepad. How it kind of just looks like it's a note on your own phone. That one gets used quite a bit. So they get picked up and just run with.
But they actually work, because every time I see them, it stops. And I know, like, I work in marketing, I see them all the time, but even still, I'm like, oh, like something different, something, I don't know, not designed well or something. Just, I'm like, oh, well, I'm in.
Yeah. So I guess where are we going with ads and creative? You mentioned video. Is it all going to be video? Are we going towards a 100% sort of video platform experience moving forward, or?
I don't know if it'll ever be 100% video, but I don't know. I feel like this is a tricky question, because everyone's always like, oh yeah, video and personalization and AI and automation. But I'm like, what does this even mean? But yeah, I don't think it'll ever be 100% video. I think there'll always be a place for stills, because I do think people just want to get value as quick as possible. So like, yes, videos, disruptive and kind of like grabs your attention. But at the same time, if you put something in front of me as an image that I can get the message in like 1 second, then that's still going to be super effective. So I don't necessarily think it's all going to be video, but I do think, generally speaking, which kind of sucks, but it's good, is that it's just everyone's going to have to get more and more creative. I know, like, I keep talking about Black Friday ads this year, but like, last year before, it was just like, I feel like last year the theme was kind of, everyone just did like a black tile that said like 20% off on sale now. And then this year the theme is, the running around the beach with posters. But it's like, you actually do just have to keep being creative. Like, we can't just chuck a tile up and hope for the best and people will click through. I think I don't know if there's a format as such, but I do think people are going to have to not be complacent and keep thinking how they can do things differently, which is very annoying.
I was going to say, which is sad, because you kind of want to put a banner up and have it work for 3 years.
I know, I'm like, that was the good old days when we could do that. Yeah, I don't know. But also, like, it's super interesting. I was reading a thing the other day about like AR and VR and like immersive stuff, and how, really that should have kind of taken off years ago, but it's kind of just like sitting over there, like simmering and just waiting to come out, and some people are like, yeah, it's the future, and there's like, I don't know, Google Glasses and all those kind of things, and they're like, is that what the future's going to look like? Where like your ads, like the example they gave was, say I'm scrolling on Facebook and then IKEA send me an ad, will it automatically turn on the camera and like show me that piece of furniture in my home, which is kind of creepy. But I was like, that is interesting. That kind of like augmented reality kind of things.
It's probably taken, I mean, AI's just taken over everything in the last 12 months. It's probably just come in and put that on the back burner. But that would be really good for like apparel and fashion, I would imagine too, like that kind of augmented stuff.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of...
That's what they...
I was just going to say, are you using much of the AI generators? I don't know if Canva's doing this, but a lot of the ad platforms themselves are just spitting out imagery now.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty good. I think I know I was talking to someone in e-com the other day, and they're like, we don't even have to do product shoots anymore. Like, you put the product and it like puts it in backgrounds, puts it in situ, like don't even need any kind of photographer or studio anymore. I actually haven't used it much myself. Probably the first time was using it for the new merch that I've been designing at the moment, putting it on some t-shirts and things like that. That was probably the first time I've used it. And it was better than I thought. I feel like I've had like a preconceived idea that it wasn't going to be very good. So in my head, I've been like, it's just quicker for me to just, I'm a designer by trade as well. So quicker for me to just design it myself. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Was that one that I've seen that it was a t-shirt laying on grass? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
That looked real. I thought that you'd ordered one and sat it in the backyard. I think that's quite good.
Yeah, that's what I was like, do you know what? And my friend said the same. She was like, oh, have you already got the samples? And I was like, no, we're living in the future. That's AI. So yeah, I was actually pretty blown away by that. So I was like, I should probably start using this more.
Yeah, that's handy because a lot of clients in the e-com space, like Shopify, you can add multiple images and they just kind of launch with the one flat lay that they might have. But could you use that to get variant 1, 2, 3, 4 in different angles and things?
Yeah. So like there's some that I've found and I've kind of just been mucking around testing heaps. I mean, there's so many out there. Some of them inbuilt, some of them like a platform might be like $10 a month where you upload like one product image or like multiple angles, and then it kind of like creates almost your like e-com suite for each product for you. I should say like e-com suite of images for each product. It's pretty good, really. I do feel like it's really, really good for like products. Like as an example, like I've got a water bottle, like put it in situ, put it in a flat lay, put it, up close, blah, blah. I feel like apparel is like good for, like the example you said, like a t-shirt on the grass, but not as good yet for like a t-shirt on a person. It's just like not quite
soon
there.
Though, hopefully.
Yeah, which will be great because I'm getting quotes for a photo shoot now, and I'm like, I need AI.
Yeah, I'm finding myself, I don't know about you, but this is going a little bit off topic, but searching through Google Lens, and I heard there's like 2 billion searches a month going through Google Lens, but just to take a photo of something and get similar products, and we're trying to optimize our clients' feeds to get them showing up more based on how we think Google interprets those images. But I feel like that might be happening more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because I feel like there's been like similar stuff to that before. Like I feel like Pinterest has had kind of like similar options before, and like even, I mean, and this is really off tangent, but like I was making a mood board for this photo shoot last night, and I put like 4 photos that I found, and I had to like search quite hard for like the specific vibe, and then I'd put 4 photos on, and it was like, oh, do you want us to find you more for this board? And I was like, yes, please. And then it was like, I had like 100 images that were perfect, and I was like, cool, job done. But yeah, I'm interested in how they like, what about those, like I said, I don't do anything in that space, but like what are they looking at? Are they looking at like with visual aspects to say that that's a similar, or are they looking at like tags, or like how are they matching that so accurately? Yeah,
that's what we need to look at, because for Google Ads, for example, if a client's got, say, a yellow jacket or raincoat, but they've labeled it mustard or something, and in the shopping feed Google reads it as mustard. If someone takes a photo of a yellow jacket, their product might not come up because it's looking for yellow jackets that are similar. So it's probably the same color visually, but I think it's Google's way of reading it. That's what I'm guessing is happening. But that's just one of the things that we need to try and figure out as these things change?
Yeah, it's never not a thing we have to figure out.
So on the ad side, to, I suppose bring it back to creative use in ads, how do you know if they're like, how do you determine which is winning? If you had like 3 ads like you were talking about earlier, 2 that you thought might work, a third is a wild card, they're both running in the campaigns, like what are you looking at? And let's assume maybe they're videos in this example.
Yeah. I mean, generally I try to look at like, I almost split my metrics into, I know most people like hate the funnel and think it's old school, but like almost top, middle and bottom of funnel metrics. So to me, sometimes there's like, as example, it's a video. Yes, I'll look at like, okay, what's the return on ad spend? Which ones are driving the most conversions? But there might be a video that's actually getting, like if I was to have a look at, 25%, 50%, 75% and 100% views, maybe that video is actually driving like really good consideration and, people are watching it till almost the end, but they're not necessarily clicking through. So it's like, okay, well, why aren't they clicking through? Could I use that video in a different way? Or could I retarget everyone that viewed the video with maybe some more like salesy messaging or that kind? So I'm not always just looking at return on ad spend or even conversions. I'm looking at like which ones are doing that and then which ones are driving a really high click-through rate, which ones are driving high view times, high comments. Like I think what generally happens is you'll put your creative out and then over time you won't just figure out which ones are like working best, but which ones are doing what job for you. And then you can kind of use them in those specific ways.
Yeah, Facebook will, as an example, if it's Facebook, a video like that might get the first touch and then another, like if we were referring to a banner like before, that might get the last touch and get the sale, but maybe it would have happened without the video coming through first.
Yeah. And that's what like, I feel like back in the day, before I'd run as many ads as I have, I would very quickly be like, oh, it's not working, turn that off, and like turn that one back on. But I feel like turning it off is like the last thing I do. Like, I don't think sometimes I'll turn it off in that campaign and put it in, like if something as an example was driving a lot of video views, but not necessarily conversions, and I might actually go and set up a video view campaign and put that in there knowing that it's already doing that and use it for brand awareness and like push it out that way. So I think it's just, not discounting creative really quickly, but like looking at all your metrics to figure out what job it's actually doing and then using it for the correct job.
There's one thing on that point that I have to stop myself, and it's so easy to forget and overlook, is that there's a 7-day conversion window in Facebook. So most of the campaigns, if it's default, you got to kind of give them 7 days to decide whether or not they're going to track back a purchase to that ad. So if you pause it within a day or two, a week later you might check back and it might be a really low CPA or something like that if it's purchases. So leave them running. I got to stop myself.
I know, especially when you launch it that morning and you log on, you're like, oh, it's just not working for me. I people not buying in 2 hours. But I do think, and even that, depending on the product as well, like even 7 days is actually pretty short. Like you think about most people get paid on a monthly cycle, like a fortnightly cycle at most. Like very rarely do people get paid on a weekly cycle. If you're a freelancer, you get paid on like a 30 days overdue cycle. So depending on how frequently people get paid, like if someone is going to take 2 or 3 weeks, that might not even show up in your kind of reporting. So you kind of want to make sure that you have some way of saying, okay, how can I attribute, or how can I don't know, make sure that I'm not making a judgment call when actually it is working, people just to maybe taking 2 weeks instead of 1 week to make that decision. So, there's heaps of different ways. It's the bane of my existence. But even just tracking, knowing, okay, I know I launched some new creative on this day. When did I see a spike? Just kind of having that in your head or on a Excel spreadsheet or somewhere so you can see the correlation.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. And then updating, how often would you recommend, I suppose? Do you have a cadence where you might check in after a week or 2 weeks and think, let's refresh some creative?
Yeah, if I think about across the board for all clients, I would say the general most common cadence is monthly. Sometimes there'll be kind of, like Black Friday or something where there's a special thing that needs to go live at a certain time. But for me, especially depending on what they're spending, if they're spending a huge amount per month, then maybe it would be like a fortnightly cadence. But I find like by the time it kind of gets enough events and it learns and it gets through to the stage that it actually knows what it's doing, like if you're going any less than 2 weeks, it's very hard to get past the learning phase and get everything sorted. So I feel like a month is enough to be like, yep, we're confident, we know what works. We can add some new stuff in based on the best performing. We can make some tweaks. I mean, you're always tweaking things and changing it, but I'm not generally adding brand new creative any more than monthly.
Yeah. I feel like Facebook's a little unrealistic sometimes with the learning phase if they're looking for 50 purchases a week. Most brands wouldn't have the budget to get out of that.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's like, do we need to get past learning phase? I'm like, look, it would be ideal, but in reality, very, very hard to do so. But even just like, I do find sometimes with ecom, like just the longer they run, sometimes, not always, but they do seem to kind of become quite a reliable CPA. So it's like if something's working, great, leave it. But I find it doesn't get to that point until kind of 2 or 3 weeks where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty confident. I know what it's going to be. I can see like a recurring trend happen, and I'm confident in what's happening.
Yeah, that's I think similar to us. We're not turning it off too soon, and then the golden rule being, if it's making our client money, don't touch it. Whatever you want to do, if it's making the client money, don't touch it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well. Sometimes like I have said to clients, like if we're doing super well, and when you just kind of like are updating the ads just because the agreement says you'll update the ads every month. But like if you're smashing the ROAS figures, you're hitting the KPIs, all the ads performing well, like just let it be and be like, okay, let's just leave it let's leave it until it's not going well and then make a change. But I don't know, sometimes there is an art to just knowing when to like take your hands off the keyboard and letting it go.
Yeah, the best optimization sometimes is none at all.
Yes, or put more money into it if it's actually working. Cool. Signal.
Yeah. Well, any other tips that you've got for us that you can think of from your day to day or week to week?
I think, like one of the things that I was thinking about any kind of examples when I knew I was coming on here, that would be like interesting to chat through. And then I was like, that's actually a good point, was the just like thinking about context of like what's happening around people. So like the example, it was actually in the US a couple of months ago, and it was a company kind of like HelloFresh, but in the US, and it was for seafood only. And their whole selling proposition was like that, you know who the fishermen are. We support local fishermen. They go out, they catch fresh fish, like you get it delivered to your doorstep, kind of like sustainable, all that kind of messaging. And we've been running ads for, 3 months. And it was going okay, but it was just really hard to compete with your HelloFreshes and like your delivery boxes. And then when we were redoing the ads in about kind of end of August, we were like, okay, like what's going on? What do people care about? And obviously the US elections were happening, and we're like, that's clearly a talking point. And where they were based, kind of where their main customers were, was very patriotic in the way that they approached, their love for America. And so we were like, okay, what if we took these ads and we like amped up the patriotism to like an 11 out of 10. And so all of a sudden the ads had like, American flag in the back, like a bald eagle, like proper amped it up to like, support. It was like every USP was an American owned, American run, support an American company. Like it was just, kind of out of my taste, but we were like, this is going to work. This is who the customer is. And the ROAS went from kind of just breaking even, knowing that obviously it's a delivery box, so the customer lifetime value is going to cover that. Those ads got to like I think it was like a 3.1 or $3.10 ROAS compared to the normal ones, which were like sitting just below $1 to break even for the first purchase. So people were clearly feeling their love for America at the time. But yeah, it was a good example of like actually thinking about context and what people are talking about and, what's trending and stuff like that.
That's a great point. I mean, even us chatting now, we're talking a lot about creative specs and formats and platforms, but what you've just mentioned is like, don't forget your customer. Where are they in their lives? What are they doing? What do they want? Which I think is key. So combining all of those,
yeah, even like, at a very simple level, it's like, obviously if you're a gym and you're thinking in January, like thinking about what are people thinking, what are they feeling, like just really, I don't know, trying to hammer home of like, when you see an ad and you're like, oh my god, that's so me, like they get me, they just understand me completely, like you kind of want to hammer that home without them realizing it. So to do that, you need to know what they're thinking and feeling. Like right now, if you wanted to reach marketers, I'm sure you could probably be like, hey, you feeling the stress of Black Friday? And they'd be like, yes, I am. So, like just thinking about like, what are their stresses at the moment? What are their challenges at the moment? What are they excited about at the moment? And even like that same company around a similar time was back to school in America, and they wanted to do like a big lead gen push. So we did like a big back to school campaign that was like, hey, you've got enough to worry about right now. Let us look after dinners, enter a competition to win 3 months of dinners on us. So like that idea was fueled by us thinking about our customers and what they're, stressed about right now. So
I think the key there as well is forward planning, because things like January back to school, this kind of stuff, they're no surprises. And I think one of the toughest things with creative might be trying to do it the night before or rushing through it.
Yes, we know that well. Every year people are like, what, it's Christmas in December? I'm like, yes, it comes every year. Madness. But I think that's important. And then probably the only other thing that I would like remind people, I mean, I know we kind of spoke about user generated content, but again, I was trying to kind of think of examples of stuff that I've done lately that would be interesting. And we did a campaign, actually I was working with Social Soup, and they do a lot with Sustainability Victoria, trying to kind of get the message out to Victorians about being more sustainable. And they had to get a message out about like FOGO bins and, the importance of FOGO bins and being organic and sustainable. And I was like, no one wants to hear that from the government. No one wants to hear that from Sustainability Victoria. So they partnered with a whole heap of just like micro creators. Some of them had barely any following, just like people that were like into gardening or cooking or whatever, and kind of got them to spread the message for them. And they amplified that as their ad creative. I think I personally am seeing that way, way more now, where brands are like, people don't want to hear from brands, they want to hear from people. So instead of us creating the creative and running the campaigns, we'll get someone else to do it, send the message out how it works for them, and then we'll amplify that on our end. I think that works super well. That's
a great tip. It's also, it means you don't have to try and find an influencer with 10,000 people in their own following and pray that they push it out and make sales for you. If you can just get the content from them, you can use it however you like.
Yeah, and some of them, like, if you've got a product they want, if you reach out to them like, hey, if I send you some product, can you do a video, and are you happy for us to boost it? Like, you basically just got creative for the price of a product and an ad creative for your campaign. So, like, if you do it well, it can actually be more cost effective than going and having to like design content or get videos created or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, this is why I like to chat, Sean, because every time we hop on, I learn something new.
I'm glad.
So if anyone's listening and they wanted to touch base, whether it be creative or even media buying, help in marketing in general, you're across many things. How can people find you, and who do you best serve?
So, I mean, you can have a look at the website. It's thesociallab.co. Or sociallab.co on Instagram. And yeah, I guess like, as I said earlier, it's kind of annoying not having a niche. Sometimes that makes it quite hard to say who my best customers are. But what I find is the best kind of thing that I can provide people, or the customers I know I can really help, are those that, have proven that they've got product market fit. And maybe you've been, someone the other day was selling at markets and they were always selling out. And so they have something that people want, but they've just never really explored digital. They've never, really looked at their website. They just kind of chuck something together that someone did for free for them 5 years ago. So that kind of next step from going, cool, I've got this thing and it's got legs, but I just don't know what to do to take it to the next level. That's where I know I can always bring value. But as well as that, I mean, I do a lot of branding, websites now, and kind of if you've got a cool idea and you're like, I want to launch this thing, but I need to do it well, then yeah, I do love a good branding project and a good, website launch. So yeah, that's probably the two main things.
If you want to launch something and you're short of creative ideas, I feel like that's where you're also very well placed, is the creativity. There may be an example of that coming to market soon. I don't know if you want to seed it, but there's a project in the works.
I don't know if that was a pun or that was accidental, but that was really good. Whether I want to seed that idea. There is a project in the works that actually, fun fact, this project came about, Luke was actually in Perth where I'm based, with his partner Kieran, and I had this idea stewing and I pitched it to both of them and got very positive feedback. So while they were there, I bought the domains, and anyway, over the last couple months we've been just tinkering away. But yes, the website went live yesterday, but we'll be proper launching later in the year. So when that happens, we'll see. see how good my ad game actually is.
Can we know the name, or is it a secret?
Yeah, you can know the name. It's called Green Thumb Threads. It's greenthumbthreads.com. It's threads for the avid gardener. Good puns, fresh fits, just good vibes. So if you like gardening and you like puns, then you can go have a look. It's got some good stuff. A lot of the puns are, again, courtesy of Luke and his partner Kieran as well. So I'll have to give some credit to those that made the cut.
But it is good to see the project come to life.
Yeah, yes. No, I will say it's very different. I mean, I don't know why it's taken me this long to make my own e-com store, but it's cool to do everything you want to do because you don't have feedback and you don't have someone going, oh, like I like that, but can we change this? Actually, I don't want to do that. Just to have like full creative freedom to be like, I'm going to do every single thing I want on this website is quite cool. So I'm interested to see. I've been tracking everything. Actually going to write it up into a case study of kind of like costs and how everything's going, because to me it's almost like, okay, if I had full creative freedom, how much could I scale this business? So let's see.
Stay tuned for episode 2.
Yes, part 2 is coming where I'm like, Luke, it's all been a flop. No, hopefully part 2 is me being like, I've actually quit my job in marketing and I just now run GTT full time. But yes, we'll share all that with you at a later date.
Looking forward to it. Okay, well, we might wrap it up there. Thanks so much, Jordan, for coming on, and hopefully we'll get you back on soon.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.